Show and Tell by Robert Munch, illustrated by Michael Martchenko. Welcome to Storytime with Miss Suzanne. Let's start a reading adventure together. Show and Tell by Robert Munch, illustrations by Michael Martchenko. Let's start our reading adventure together with a book that Robert Munch made for Ben and Sharon Chia from Guelph, Ontario. Benjamin wanted to take something really neat to school for show and tell. So he decided to take his new baby sister. He went upstairs, picked her up, and put her in his knapsack, and walked off to school. That's a neat show and tell, don't you think, my friend? But when Ben sat down, his baby sister finally woke up. She was not happy inside the knapsack and started to cry. Wah, 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 wah. The teacher looked at him and said, "Benjamin, stop making that noise." Ben said, "That's not me. It's my baby sister. She's in my knapsack. I brought her for show and tell." "Yikes," said the teacher. "You can't keep a baby in a knapsack." She grabbed Ben's knapsack and opened it up. The baby looked at the teacher and said, "Wah, wah, wah, wah." "Don't worry," said the teacher. "I know how to take care of babies." She picked it up and rocked it back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. Unfortunately, the teacher was not the baby's mother, and she didn't rock quite right. The baby cried even louder. Wah, 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 wah. The principal came running in. He looked at the teacher and said, "Stop making that noise." The teacher said, "It's not me, it's Sharon, Ben's new baby sister. He brought her for show and tell. She won't stop crying." The principal said, "Don't worry. I know how to make kids be quiet." He picked up the baby and yelled, "Hey you, be quiet." The baby did not like that at all. It screamed really loud. Wah, 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 wah. The principal said, "What's the matter with this baby? It must be sick. I'll call a doctor." The doctor came with a big black bag. She looked in the baby's eyes, she looked in the baby's ears, and she looked in the baby's mouth. She said, "Don't worry, I know what to do. This baby needs a needle." So the doctor opened her bag, and she got out a short needle and said, "Nah, too small." The doctor reached into her bag and got out a longer needle and said, "Nah, too small." The doctor reached into her bag and got out a really long needle, and she said, "Nah, too small." The doctor reached in her bag and got out an enormous needle and said, "Just right." When the baby saw that enormous needle, it yelled as loud as it could. Wah, 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 wah. Ben said, "What's the matter with this school? Nobody knows what to do with a baby." He ran down to the principal's office and called his mother on the phone. He said, "Help, help, help. You have to come to the school right away." The mother said, "Ben, your little sister is lost. I can't come to school. I have to find her." "She's not lost," said Ben. "I took her to school in my knapsack." "Oh, no," yelled her mother. She ran down the street and into the school. The principal and the teacher and the doctor were all standing around the baby, and the baby was yelling as loud as possible. Wah, wah, wah. The mother picked up the baby and rocked it back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. The baby said, and went to sleep. "Oh, thank you, said the principal. "That baby was making so much noise, it was just making me feel sick." "Sick?" said the doctor. "Sick? Did that man say he was sick? He must need a needle." So the doctor opened her bag and got out a short needle and said, "Nah, too small." The doctor reached into her bag and got out a longer needle and said, "Nah, too small." The doctor reached into her bag and got out a really long needle and said, "Nah, too small." The doctor reached into her bag, got out an enormous needle and said, "Just right." The principal looked at that enormous needle and said, "Wah, wah, wah," and ran out the door. "Now," said the mother, "it's time to take this baby home." "Right," said Ben. You can use my knapsack." "What a great idea," said the mother. "I don't think that's what Ben meant when he said you could use my knapsack." Ben and his mother put the baby into bed. She went to sleep and didn't cry, not even once. She's so happy to be home. Ben went back to school carrying some strange things for show and tell, and he wasn't out of place at all. Look at all the things that came for show and tell. Oh my goodness, I see so many things. Wow, and a bird, and a very interesting present, and a boy in a snowsuit. I see a dog, some pigs, a snake. Is that a dragon? I don't know if I would bring a dragon to show and tell. Maybe don't bring a dragon to show and tell, my friends. The end. Thank you for joining me today, my friends, as we read Show and Tell by Robert Munch and illustrated by Michael Martchenko. This book was a lot of fun about learning what we should take to show and tell. And I know that your teachers probably have rules about show and tell, that maybe it's one special thing. And we should really listen to those rules because we don't want anybody to bring a screaming baby or a dragon or a snake to school for show and tell. And I hope everybody has a great day, and I'll see you next time on Storytime with Miss Suzanne. Goodbye, my friends. We can get to know a little bit more about the author and illustrator. Robert Munch lives in Guelph, Ontario. He describes his stories as songs without music. I don't have a guitar and I don't sing, but kids will always join in spontaneously. Virtually all of his story ideas are inspired by the kids he meets in his storytelling sessions, but Show and Tell is about two kids who live down the street from him. That's cool. And Michael Martchenko lives in Toronto. He has illustrated over 20 children's books and has his artwork exhibited throughout North America. When Michael was a little boy, he wanted to bring his sister to school for show and tell, but she couldn't fit in his knapsack. She was 17 years old. And that's a little bit more about our author and illustrator from the book Show and Tell.